and ain't no wannabes here. With some not so nice advice for your writing career. To be clear, no punches will be pulled, but the punch may be spiked. How they like before they get on the mic. To my left, we got the mighty Mer Lafferty. And if I piss her off, believe me, she'll come after me. And her co-host, Matt Evan Wallace, on the right. Yes, she may be half as hype as she can take him in a fight. So settle in, folks, buckle in and boot up. Time to meddle in a way to make your writer shut up. It's hard work, but the perk is that it's fun and exciting. Facebook will still be there when you're done writing. Ditch Diggers! Ditch Diggers!
All right, we are recording now. Oh, wait, where are we coming from, Matt?
That's a really good question.
From Morgan Freeman's dojo.
Dojo, that's perfect. Perfect.
He doesn't have one, of course. Duh. Oh, I didn't think of that. Sorry. All right, coming to you live from Morgan Freeman's dojo, it is the Ditch Diggers with Mer Lafferty, Matt Wallace, and special guest host Lexi Alexander. Lexi, we are more stoked than ever to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be on this podcast.
Well,
apparently Lexi has been listening to us in the car and talking to us as she listens to us.
I am screaming out loud things at you as I'm driving in the car.
I imagine a lot of people do that. Some angrily, some enthusiastically. I don't
know if you guys ever say anything that makes anybody angry. I'm not sure. But, it is interesting because there's definitely a difference between writing, or as I call it, the proper writing, like you guys do. and then the other, the other side of the business, which is my business, where we also write stories, but in different mediums, and, scripts are more blueprints than anything else. And a lot of stuff that, fits your industry doesn't really work in ours. So it was very intriguing for me.
Well, that's really cool to hear, and you're absolutely right there. The mediums couldn't be, even though they cross over so often, they couldn't be more different. And the thing is, as and I'm speaking to our audience now, I have to do that because I'm terrible at segues, and then I have to point out that I'm terrible at segues. Everyone knows Lexi as a filmmaker, as the director of Green Street Hooligans, Punisher Warzone. She was nominated for friggin' Oscars. So a lot of people know you as a director, Lexi, but I don't think a lot of people realize that you are also a very talented and very active writer. And I don't, you were saying you were excited to be on the show because you don't get to talk about that much. So it's really cool to have you to do that.
It's very, very true. I did, write all those first films. They were all based on true stories that I experienced. But I had this I had this complex about my English at the time not being perfect, and so I would always get a co-writer on, and both occasions, Johnny Flinton and Green Street, they were saying, well, what exactly is it you want us to do? You wrote the whole thing. So I didn't realize until later I really needed a copy editor, and I didn't realize until I didn't really meet him. My friend knows him. So I stood next to them as they greeted each other, Quentin Tarantino, and he must have been writing Kill Bill at the moment in a coffee shop on these post-it cards. And I stared at them and I couldn't believe it. I thought, holy shit, not only does he have the worst writing, but this is the worst spelling. And it was kind of awesome because it encouraged me, because all along I was thinking, I'm not sure that, there's a little bit of snobbishness in the writing world, I think, sometimes, where people think you have to have studied English lit to be a great writer.
Yeah.
And I know some screenwriter who have a podcast who actually say that somebody whose first language isn't English can probably not write a script. Mind you, both of these gentlemen are people who most of these gentlemen are people who don't actually speak a second language, so they have no idea.
I was going to say, even years ago, I'm sure your English was much better than my German will ever be. So I give you a lot of props.
Yeah.
What's really funny is when we get emails to the show from people whose English is not their first language, it's almost always perfect, grammatically and spelling wise, and they inevitably apologize for English not being their first language. And I guess we don't study English, past what we have to do when we're learning sentence structure and grammar in grade school. We don't study it, and it's likely that adults have studied actual rules of English a lot more recently than a lot of English speakers, because we just speak it all the time. So I find it, wow, vastly insulting that people just people can't write in this language.
No, and I think you kind of hit it. They always apologize. I think it's a confidence issue that we inflict on them, despite the fact that they're actually much more well studied than most of us are. Even as writers.
I think we all kind of feel insecure about it. I mean, for example, I also speak Arabic, but I don't write or read it. I've never learned it, and my God, it's like the shame I feel of being an illiterate, and that the idea that actually most people don't speak more than one language does not even hit my mind. I just every English mistake, every tweet that has a spelling mistake, I delete immediately.
Right.
I mean, we have this huge complex, and the reason why I mentioned this Quentin Tarantino story is because it empowered me so much to think that this filmmaker had the worst grammar and spelling and the worst, handwriting, and he was a mess. I mean, these were cards all over, flying all over like this old coffee table, and
right.
I know he just handed them to somebody. It's not like he sat down on the typewriter. I'm sure he didn't.
I have no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I mean, compared to, I do think in prose you may need, I'm not sure. I don't want to say that there are any limits, but I can imagine that it's slightly more difficult than the blueprint of a film, which really is what a screenplay is, Well,
yeah, I mean, I would say there's definitely more emphasis on the actual writing and prose, because that's all we have. But I mean, the thing is, as you're saying, I'm thinking, I mean, I want to say that that's the way it is across the board, but I can think of plenty of writers in my head, I'm not going to name any of them, who I've read their books, and they're very popular books, and I've thought they were borderline illiterate, to be honest with you. Like, I'm stunned by how base and ill-formed the writing is. So even in books and even in prose, I think there's a lot of that going on. And see, it really seems like, you go back to the confidence thing, it's really more important to have confidence in what you're doing than to have really immaculate execution.
I agree, and I also think that storytelling is not based on, how vast your language skill is. I find that the most rich novels are often very difficult for me to read in every language. So sometimes if you can tell me a story very simply, and I get intrigued by it, I don't need all the the sweat pearls, felt like rain, all these insanity, richness and whatever else other people think they have to put in there. So, it's just good storytelling is good storytelling.
I completely agree, and I think in a visual media, movies and television, it's even more important because it's more stripped down. You don't have a lot of language, a lot of fancy language to dress it up. It's what you're seeing, and it has to be compelling. So I think it's even more important to have that kind of pure stripped down thing.
Exactly.
People have anxiety about this all the time. I'm friends with Mignon Fogarty, who's also known as Grammar Girl, and she has told me that people are they write to her all the time, but they're really, really scared when they do so, because they're worried, like, if they make a grammatical mistake in the letter to her, that she will judge them.
I know who she is. I feel the same way. I don't know. It's like, and I don't even know why I feel like this, because it's hard. I always feel I'm a little bit in language no man's land, because at this point I don't speak any of them perfect anymore. I'm kind of in between in all of them. So I do have a massive complex about it. But, I'm dying, for example, to ask, I did ask the other day, I said, explain me this effect and affect again, which is something I don't seem to understand ever. Like, I don't understand it. It's such a stupid rule. When do you write it with A and when do you write it with E?
You're not wrong about that. And this is why I give so much respect to anybody who can transition to English from other languages.
Yeah.
English makes no fucking sense. It really doesn't. It's such a bastardized language with all these.
Yeah, there are some weird rules.
Yeah, that are often contrary. That completely conflict with each other too. So I think there's a good lesson there. It's not you, it's the language. It really is the language.
Right.
No kidding. Was that a rhetorical question, or can I answer it?
Oh, if you would like to answer it, please do.
Effect with an E is a noun, and it is something that happens as an effect that it's been raining like hell here. It's flooding. So the flooding is the effect with the E. Affect is a verb. It's what happens, and it's used less often. But the rain can affect the water, how much water is overflowing from the lake. Does that help?
Well,
affect is a verb?
Yes.
But what do you say when you say it didn't have this kind of emotional effect on me? Then it's not a verb, is it?
Then
That's a noun.
Yeah.
So then do you write it with E instead of A? Oh.
But if it affected you emotionally, it's an A. And just saying this out loud makes me hate my own language. I'm so sorry.
It is, yeah. It gets really close.
It's really stupid.
It sounds really reasonable when you start, but when you start picking at it, you start to see how ridiculous it actually is.
I know, because this has always been the thing with this thing, because I thought I had it, and then I didn't have it, and I'm like, well, fuck this. This is not right. By the way, can I curse on this podcast?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, you absolutely can.
Yeah, see, this is the thing, because it does sound, now I was just thinking, like, well, if it's that easy, why didn't I get it? But then all of a sudden it starts to turn on you.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden.
I'm just going to use impact. That's what I do.
There you go.
I think that's great. And again, I would argue in a screenplay, who gives a shit as long as you get the idea of the story across.
I mean, and that's so true. I mean, that's where I do think it's slightly easier in a sense of language. Like it's, you know, it also doesn't matter if you use the same sentence in a paragraph, the same word in a paragraph twice, because really that's not what it's about. You know, you're supposed to give people an idea how this film is going to play and look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I'd really like to know, Lexi, like how you got started with film writing and how you actually transitioned into starting to make things and sell things and really getting into the business.
Well, I was, as you know, because you're a fellow fighter, I was a martial artist. And at some point, I fought a tournament here in the U.S. And, you know, it was back in the 90s, just as the B movies were kind of dying, but there was still somewhat of a market. And, you know, we were all trying to figure out as martial artists, and when we're kind of become world class and win big tournaments, what can we do that actually makes money other than owning a dojo?
Right.
And there definitely was. There was Hollywood was like the one market where martial artists would, you know, either be in front of the camera or stunt people or choreographers. So there was definitely, you know, an industry that you could segue into. And I remember Chuck Norris being one of the people who sponsored my green card among like 5-6 famous.
Is it true? I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but we don't really get along. I mean, we couldn't be politically. I think it started during Bush days. Like we are so opposing in terms of politics that he has never talked to me again. I've never talked to him again. You know? But he and a few others like Pat Johnson, Bill Wallace, there was a few martial artists who like sponsored my green card, which means they wrote letters for me to come here. And it was actually Chuck who sent me to an acting school in Santa Monica. It was called the Joanne Barron DW something Studio of Dramatic Arts. And, you know, although I liked studying serious acting and Stanislavski and Meisner, I knew that I didn't want to be in front of the camera. Not only because I hate dieting. But it was just not. It wasn't really me. But I did enjoy once there was odd number of students in class. You would like direct the scene. I did enjoy that, and then I tried to figure out, well, how do I do this directing thing? I became a stunt woman first to make some money, because I don't come from money. There's nobody in my family who has any money to send me to USC or anything, and. that's not something you can really kind of self-afford. So I became a stunt woman and started reading books. I read a lot of books about other indie directors. I mean, the good news about the 90s was that there was this boom of indie directors. They were all dudes, but there was the Soderbergh and Rodriguez and like all of those guys, and they were all making films and having buzz at Sundance with films that cost nothing. And so I felt kind of encouraged by that. And I took a class at UCLA, extension class on how to make short films, tried a couple of short films that nobody ever saw, that were just testing things. And then I took a year out and raised money. Literally, I did like a year of giving martial arts seminars almost all around the country, and put the money aside. So I could make this one short film that I thought either this is my calling card or I'm not doing this. Like I have to put it all into this. And if it doesn't work, then I don't have a path in. And luckily for me, that turned out to be Johnny Flinton, and it was nominated for an Oscar, and that's kind of how it started.
That's fantastic. I love stories like that, and I love that you chose to be inspired by the even though it was all dudes breaking in the early '90s, you still said, "Fuck it, I can do this."
You know, I didn't think there was a problem with gender equality until way later. Like, I was so blind to it. I grew up around dudes all my life. Like, you know, it doesn't matter if it was in the dojo or if it was, you know, traveling with a karate team for 2 years on a bus to every tournament, all guys, or, you know, my time spending at the football or soccer, as you say, soccer games with hooligans, they were all guys. So I've never felt in any way that anybody disrespected me, you know, or didn't think I was as good. You know, granted, the hooligans didn't necessarily want me to get into the, you know, fights with them, but neither did I want to do that. But there wasn't like, they had great respect for my martial arts skill, and I was always in the paper winning some kind of tournament, and there was a lot of like, you know, and it just strikes me as so odd that here were these guys from a small town in a German village who had more respect for me than, you know, these liberal dudes in Hollywood. But until I saw that, it took me a while. It just didn't occur to me that after all this, after spending all this time in all these male worlds, the place where I would find the most sexism and misogyny is Hollywood. It just didn't occur to me, to be honest.
I mean, who can, like, it does, it doesn't make any sense, you know, so why would it occur to you? It is, you know, I honestly feel like it's gone backwards as time has passed. Yeah, I mean, I remember just recently I was rewatching like the first season of like Married with Children or something, and I noticed that literally like almost all of the writing credits were women. And this was a show from the 80s.
Right.
And,
the 80s was huge for women.
Try to find that now. We've literally regressed so harshly.
We did.
And that's just such a fucked up and perfect metaphor. Like, soccer hooligans were perfectly accepting of you, but Hollywood liberals want you to go to the
and you know, I always say this, and you know this, martial arts schools everywhere. Like, I've not walked into a dojo where, you know, frankly, you know, I'm not saying that there wasn't a whistle, or like somebody didn't do some weird kind of, oh, hello. But the minute they realized who I am, or somebody said, oh, this is such and such, and she has this title, you know, there's a certain instant respect that comes, and that's it. Then you're a fighter, and you're one of them. And in all these years, I mean, my first official job in the U.S. was I taught 150 Marines at at Camp Pendleton, hand-to-hand combat, and I was nervous because I thought it was a friend of mine who was a sergeant at the time, Blaine was his name. He had this idea, and I thought, why is he bringing me in there? Like, you know, I was like 18, 19, something like this. I was the current world champion at the time, but still I thought, these are Marines. Like, they don't want to be told by this little, you know, girl what to do. And I mean, I have to say, I wasn't in the military, so I can't speak. I know they have also a sexual harassment and sexism problem.
Yeah.
But for the time I spent there teaching those seminars, they were perfectly respectful to me. Perfectly respectful. Again, nobody has ever doubted that I worked hard, you know, to get the skills that I have. And so I find it so utterly disappointing that that Hollywood is what it is, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big parallels are you were able to earn respect in all those other mediums through your accomplishments, whereas you're no less accomplished as a filmmaker. You've been nominated for an Oscar, for fuck's sake. You know, you've made big feature films, and yet the mentality here isn't like it was in those military classes or in martial arts classes where they go, well, she obviously knows what she's doing. She's one of us. Let's just accept her. Like, that
And I
doesn't
have a
happen.
theory about this that you will actually probably understand, is because I think in fighting and martial arts, you step into the ring or you step onto the mat, and it's hard to argue, when you see somebody fight, or even if you spar with them. Like, at some point you have to admit that that person actually has put some training in and knows something. But
Right.
For some reason in Hollywood, even an Oscar nomination, they have always looked, I mean, for years there were rumors that Green Street was really directed by the DP. They always look for the guy,
Right.
look for the guy. On Johnny Flinton, I actually was so grateful to the DP who was working for free. We were all working for free. We barely had money for this. But I was so grateful that when I filled out the Academy thing that you have to fill in before you send in your film, you were able to put in 2 nominees instead of 1. So you were putting in 2 filmmakers for a short film instead of just saying it's you. And I put him on there.
Right.
And not trying to do a good thing and saying, hey, my DP worked as much. And what that turned into is that it really was his film. Like, this has always happened to me, always. Unless the film fails, then it's all my fault.
Then, of course,
sure.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
of course, it's all women can't direct. It's
Yeah.
never just she can't direct. So it is. But, in general, I think in sports, it's easier because, I mean, God, Matt, like, I would love to, compete with anybody. Like I always say, give me the same budget and the same days and the same resources as another director and the same script, and let's see what comes out with it. But see, we don't do that here. And that's where bias becomes incredibly powerful, because when you can invent a narrative of why that person is not good or that this person is not really skilled and talented, that's really convenient for, systemic oppression and discrimination.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even about a level playing field. They don't even give you a playing field. Like, you can't even get out there and work and
Exactly.
and compete. Yeah, and so there's nothing to do about it.
So
No,
there's a book called How to Suppress Women's Writing by Joanna Russ. And of course, when my daughter saw it, she's like, "Why do you have this book?" I'm like, "No, it's actually explaining how it's happened over the years. It's not an actual how-to
It's not a manual.
guide." Yeah. And it's I could only read it. It's a very short book. It's condensed. I mean, it's tightly packed with information, but I could only read it one chapter at a time, and then I would have to put it down because it would make me so angry. But it really does. She didn't really write it. If she did, she shouldn't have. Or if she did, she had help. Or it just goes, it's like if you shove the truth in someone's face, they will switch gears and try to find another way. Okay,
right.
Women can't do this. Well, this woman did. Well, she had help, or she did it poorly, or people were being nice to her, and we're getting a lot of women getting award nominations in science fiction right now, and I can attest for some pretty amazing work.
Absolutely.
But they're getting a lot of, people want to vote diversity, so that's why N.K. Jemisin won the
Political
Hugo
correctness.
last year.
Yeah.
Like, did you
Despite
fucking
the fact
read the 5th season?
Yeah.
The 5th
She's a
season
mind-blowing
was...
writer. Yeah.
I know, and it's hard to match those switching gears all the time, because you have to get in there and make your point, but it's like Tam Lin, when the fairy tale, when the person's trying to hold on to somebody and they keep switching into a more and more dangerous animal that attacks them, but they can't let go or else they're off to fairy. That's like
That's
talking.
a good metaphor.
Yeah, thank you. I work on it.
I
don't know how you
those
do
kind
it,
of,
really.
well, how do we all do it? I mean, it does what it is, it's just a form of gaslighting. And my God, my industry is certainly masterful at it. And they don't even realize it. I mean, if they do, I mean, there was an incident not long ago where a woman who thinks of herself as like, when I come in, she's like, I'm so glad to see you. I love your Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I love your blogs and da. I've been meaning to call you in forever. And this was about a specific show. And, frankly, it wasn't even a show I was keen on doing. But, in her trying to get me on the show, she's checked some references. And apparently this stuff came back that, made me sound difficult. And of course, I was laughing because, people never say, oh, when she was on our show, she had a problem that, the stunt guys wanted to put a stunt woman into blackface because they couldn't find a black stunt woman. Like that's what's never said. But what's said is like, yeah, she's difficult. She's asking for stuff that's costing a lot of money. Yes, I did. You had to fly in a black stunt woman from LA. But why don't you tell people why I was costing you the money? And by the way, why am I the one who has to come on your show and tell you that it's not okay to put a stunt woman in blackface? But this is the kind of thing it is. And I can tell you like 20 stories of each show and how that turned out. And it's, when you on top of it, an activist for a better Hollywood, and you have integrity, and you also are complete unable to, just act as if you didn't see something bad happening, this becomes a conflict. But back to this woman who totally believed this, and she would call herself a feminist. She would think that she is on the same side of like women who get, overseen in this business and pushed out of the way. And yet she bought into the gaslighting like everybody else did. And it occurred to me how powerful it is. And still people say to me, I mean, I am known to everybody as a fierce fighter for equality in this industry. I'm sure everybody knows I'm a feminist. I'm certainly not going to deny it, Right. And yet still people meet with me, and a woman comes up, a director, and somebody will say in my face, oh, but she really is crazy.
Wow.
And then I look at them and they will go, no, really. I mean, I know you shouldn't say that about women, but she really is. And by the way, I've heard that about every single female director. The minute she is somewhat getting up high there, she's maybe left a project because she didn't see any the same creative vision. It's totally cool for guys, but she will be every room I go to. Oh, she's crazy, right? Oh, yeah. And it's interesting to me that people don't even hesitate to tell me this. So we are absolutely completely regressing badly, and nobody sees it. And frankly, I'm also really tired talking about it.
Oh no, I honestly didn't mean to get.
No, it's my fault. I end up talking about it because it is my life. But in terms of like being an activist for it, it's it's that, what is that saying? I think Einstein said it. The definition of crazy is doing something over and over and not seeing any change.
Expecting a different result. Doing the same thing.
And that's how I feel right now. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like this is not going nowhere, which basically led me to kind of switching from directing into writing my own thing,
I think that's often the answer too. Yeah.
I want to say the thing about Einstein is that holds for like science. And, if you stick your hand in a fire and you get burned, and tomorrow you stick your hand in a fire again, you're gonna get burned. But with like life and social interactions, and I think you have to keep doing
it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
The only way to change it is to keep doing it until you get a different result.
I mean, it's like it's you're both athletes. That it's you keep working to win, and even if you don't win, you keep working out.
Exactly.
But when you keep losing fights and not getting anywhere, you do have to change something about your own technique.
Absolutely.
And I think the point is not that you should quit and not do it anymore. The point is like this way is not working.
Yeah.
You have to find a different way to train. You have to find a new
Exactly.
tactic.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. Can I ask, especially since Lexi's tired of talking about this?
No, I'm not really tired.
I know.
With you guys, I can talk about this endlessly, but I was just thinking of my life in terms of like, how many blogs have I written about this? How many documentaries have I done about this? And it's just, we're regressing, and it's always hard to like, like Matt said it before I said it, that we're regressing, and it's always hard for me to hear that other people are seeing this as well. So it's not just me; other people are seeing it as well, and it's like we are getting louder and louder and louder. I mean, we got the EEOC involved. It took, it took 2 years for the ACLU to get involved, then another 2 years to get the EEOC involved, and we're still regressing. So it's frustrating in that sense, but I can talk with you guys about it forever. Don't worry about it.
I appreciate it. But no, Mer, please ask your question.
I want to ask a question about screenwriting that I've always wondered, and I'm asking probably from the point of view of the audience, just because you guys both will probably think this is a very obvious question. But the one thing I've always misunderstood or been confused about is when I write a book, I'm writing the book. The editor gives me some advice, but it's my book. And if I collaborate with somebody, it's like two of us. But how do you come to terms with the fact that so many people have their hands on a script in Hollywood? That's always baffled me.
Well, that's actually a really good question. Matt, do you want to answer this first?
No, I'd love you to tackle it, please. Yeah.
Well, you see, this is a weird thing, because I'm not a screenwriter that you can hire for assignment screenwriting. I may have thought at one point that back when I then really put effort into it and wrote screenplays, I think there was a screenplay I sold for $150,000 to Lauren Schuler Donner and Dick Donner, and it was a bidding war, and it was the biggest sale I had. It never got made. It was about the war, so of course it didn't get made. Right. But it was a big, there was this moment of like, is this going to be part of what I do? But I'm not, precisely because I don't write like that. I think there is a lot of great screenwriters who are great at taking notes and collaborating, and also some who manage studio executives. Like, my friend Doug Richardson, I thought, was always incredibly good about managing notes. When he got like 5 different notes from 5 different places and 5 different executives, and then he also had to serve the director and the actors and stuff. There are some people who are great at this. There are also people who are great at adapting. I'm not great at this. And it's not because I don't want to collaborate, but I think that's where my heart is more of a filmmaker. I also found out now with this project that I have just written and sold is that my writing actually stinks when I'm not passionate about it, when it's not personal. Now, this is not the case for a lot of Hollywood screenwriters, because they sometimes take jobs that, you can't tell me that everybody is passionate about Fast and the Furious 10, or the A-Team or Battleship, like at some point you're taking a job and it's for the paycheck or for the relationship with the studio. So they're not all passion jobs, and some people do that incredibly well. My writing literally stinks. Like, I cannot do it. And so I don't think with this particular pilot it was really interesting, because I can't quite say who I sold it to, because the lawyers are still going back and forth. So I think it would be weird to like say it, but it was a company that was not on the list that our agents, and basically what happened is my friend Scott Derrickson, who's a much more famous director than me, he just did Doctor Strange, and he's been doing this for a long time. Doctor Strange made a lot of money, so he's a big kind of A-lister right now, and he's encouraged me to write something on my own and said, look, I'm going to produce it. And what that means is that he just walks into the room with me, which is a great thing, because I just think there's something to be said about walking in a room with a successful white dude.
No, it makes a huge difference. I give him a lot of props for using his position to elevate, people who need it, who are being given the shot. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And he doesn't do it like, oh, here I am, the important guy. He goes into that room and says, look, no doubt this is the best voice I've read on this, blah, blah. So he does a great job and doesn't do it if he doesn't believe in it. But both his agents and my agents and managers and everybody, they all got together once the spec was done and everybody loved it and said, who do we send this to? So you have to kind of think of the production companies you send this out to. And they mentioned some names of these non-writing entities. And my big concern was who's going to want this, but then change it, because this has happened to me before many times where an idea of mine got optioned for TV, and then in development, it was just like, holy shit, how did this, pitch that I had about 4 diplomatic security agents, women,
right,
who are around the female Secretary of State, which was based on a real article that I found. How did this, within 8 months of development, become about the male British ambassador?
The one male role in the whole thing. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, and this has happened, and so I didn't want this to happen to me. And at some point I called Scott and I said, I have this crazy idea of a person to go to that and I know, and he's not going to be on any list that our agent's sending us, because he's not in that prestige drama arena in TV yet. But I think he's going to be right for this, because I think that if he responds to the material, he's going to leave me alone and let me do this thing. And Scott was like, absolutely right, we should call him. And sure enough, he totally got what this was, and he fucking fought for it too. He was the only one who actually bid money, was serious, let's not only give you money to option this, but let's pay you to write this and that, and then bring it to the network. And it's amazing, and I'm super happy about it. But I came up with the idea of going to his company because I was so afraid of people changing it into something else.
No, but I don't think that was a bad kind of fear, though. I think it motivated you to find the right people, because they are out there. They are out there, so you just gotta, wade through all the crap to get to them. And I think you made the right choice. No, I think that's a great answer to Mer's question too. I come at it from a completely the other side you were talking about, Lexi, which is traditionally I've just taken any job I could get because I need to eat and I don't mind it.
But that's also a skill. That's a skill.
It is,
yeah.
and I do take a certain measure of pride in it. You eat a lot of shit and you feel disgusted with yourself a lot of the time. But I am proud of being able to kind of adapt to any situation. But I think the key to that is you have to find a way to compartmentalize and kind of disconnect from what you're doing, and go, this isn't my baby. This isn't a thing that if it gets mutilated, I'm going to shed tears over. This is a job, and I will absolutely do the best of my ability to meet the demands that are expected of me. But I'm not going to emotionally tear myself up over it, because you absolutely will. If you get too invested in every idea, you'll agonize over everything, and you'll have your heart broken again and again, because that's what happens. They change everything out here, inevitably.
Yeah, that's so true.
But no, and congratulations on selling the pilot, by the way. And I really hope.
Thank you.
I
was so excited to talk to you because it's been a few years, to be honest, I don't know why I quit writing. I guess I only wrote in the beginning. Both Johnny Flinton and Queen Street were out of necessity. I had read in some book that after you have your first success, you have to have something in your back pocket, and I couldn't find anything, so I thought I'll come up with this, and it was good that I had it, because even though CAA signed me based on Johnny Flinton, they didn't get me any jobs, and so
right.
We barely got Queen Street financed, and that kind of got me on another level. Still, it was an odd thing, because suddenly I was this hot director in town and won South by Southwest jury and audience award, and everybody loved this movie. Still, I didn't book any jobs.
No, it's amazing how that happens. Especially, I hate to go back to it, but especially when you're a woman,
Well, that was the thing. It was it was unheard of, But it was not unheard of for a woman, but the fact that I was on this level and going to all these meetings but never booking them was just kind of wild. But I had in my mind, I had this idea of, well, now I'm going to be a director and take assignment, open director assignments.
Right.
And it's actually very interesting. I don't know at what point I stopped writing. I do feel like there was a time where I was so panicked about my career that I started writing things that I thought would sell. And oh my God, I was so shit at it and didn't see it. I did not see it. That nothing was, I can't even believe people wrote more than 2 pages. They probably didn't, but I got really shit just by, there was no flow. It didn't come from me. And it was so hard to even sit down. And, Scott and we had this, I had this crisis moment of I don't think I can do this anymore. I was actually this close to leaving the business completely and becoming a war zone reporter. I had taken a course and everything.
Right.
I figured, hey,
you would be amazing at that, but I'm glad you're doing it.
I'm not sure if I could you actually, if you told fiction for so long in a certain narrative, can you actually be fact-based reporter? Difficult, but I did. I mean, I do speak Arabic and I kind of can defend myself. So I figured, fuck it, there's always trouble out there. I'm going out there.
Right.
So I had it all set up. I was done. And I also thought, there's no room for me here. And Scott had this really great talk with me where he said, you just are on the wrong path. Somehow after Queen Street, you went on the wrong path and you're not doing either the things you care about or you want to see yourself, or that, there's any of the passion of Johnny Flinton and Queen Street in there. And I thought he had a point. And so I sat down and I wrote this pilot in less than 3 weeks. And I've never, ever received more compliments. I mean, it's really the point now where people are now trying to hire me for even the people who said, we don't think we can do this show. Because it's set in the Middle East. It has only one white dude. The rest are all Arab. So the fact that it was so popular blows my mind, right? But so there were companies who said, we read this, we don't think we can do it, but we have to meet her to see what else she wants to do and if she can join our writing staff. So I'm currently taking these meetings of people who I have to convince them I can't be on a writing staff.
Right. That's not a bad position to be in, though. I mean, you're I love that, though. You went back to what got you to the show, which is telling the personal stories that appealed to you. I think that's
exactly. Yeah, and I don't know how that works for you guys, but I really, when people said, "Oh, write what you care about and write what's personal to you," and the one thing that always made sense to me was write what you want to see.
Right.
What you would want to see. That always made sense to me. But the other stuff, I was like, blah blah blah. These quotes that everybody says.
It sounds trite. It sounds very contrived. Write what you know. It's like a worn out kind of thing. But the reverse side of that is, and you were talking about it, is I think chasing trends, chasing a market in any medium, because we have that in books too. You get to a point where you haven't sold anything in a long time. You're like, okay, well, what's going to be the next big thing in fantasy? Is it going to be vampires? Is it going to be, Game of Thrones? Let me aim for that. I think whenever you do that, you're screwed. Exactly like you're talking about is it comes out rote. It's not organic. There's no flow. There's no passion to it. It's just very empty. So I think there's a huge lesson to be learned in that.
Oh, I learned a huge lesson. But why I was dying to talk to you guys, because I also feel compared to filmmaking, it's a very isolating experience, especially when people are very surprised when they read the script, because it's actually a love story. And almost every executive that I met when we were still doing the rounds, figuring out what was, said, I cannot believe that, you wrote a thing that we're all dying to know what's happening next with them. And how did you get there? And, the way I described it once is, that saying that if you want a wound to heal, don't touch it. It's basically, I do the opposite. I said, my rule is I tear the scab off and pour salt on it.
That's awesome.
But this literally is what I have to do. And I'm not going to get into it too much, because this is I'm assuming you have a wide audience. And I don't want to get too personal, but it literally is, I had to go to places that, were not easy to go to. Usually when you see me on Twitter more than usual is when I'm running away from writing the next scene.
I think that's when you see a lot of writers on Twitter the most.
Yeah, there were times where it's become really, really painful. And writing is, when you make a movie, you even in prep or on the set, you are there with people. And I felt emotional on sets, but you're there with at least some trusted people. writing is very isolated, and how you can explain that? I mean, my shrink is making a lot of money off me right now because he's literally the only one I can I can talk about this, and it's kind of a crazy thing to like, kind of almost keep this heartbreak alive, or, to pour out all these like memories that you really should get over with. But here you are poking them because they have made your writing so good. And, I kind of felt like I don't have a lot of writer friends that, I can talk about this with. So I was really excited to talk with you guys. About pain and suffering.
No, and come on the show anytime. We'd be delighted to have you.
I mean, I can't speak for Mur, but the thing is, and I think a lot of writers struggle with this when they really get into it, especially people who like the idea of being a writer more than they actually like writing, when they find out how lonely a pursuit it actually is. Because whatever your support system, whatever writing workshop you go to, however many Twitter followers you have an agent, you have an editor, you have friends. At the end of the day, man, it's just you and that blank page, and nobody can help you. That's very hard for a lot of people to handle. I see it crush a lot of people who really want to do this and just can't deal with it.
I'm now. The last thing I said to my shrink was like, I totally get why Vincent van Gogh cut off his ear. And he said to me, Vincent van Gogh was bipolar.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I happen to have this great shrink who was also a musician before he was a shrink. And so he does get this. He was actually telling me how, we talked about this of, suffering for your art is a bit of a trope, and it shouldn't be like that necessarily. Right. But there's also this other part. I mean, I can feel it definitely right now. Like, I know why people care so much about this particular story. And I know where that comes from. And I know that if I don't go there, it's not going to be as good. And so it's not necessarily that I'm not going to go out and, do something crazy so that I suffer, so I write something. It's just that that did happen, and I'm going there. And so he said something interesting about Bruce Springsteen, who he said, whose music, I guess, wasn't as good once he was happy.
Right.
So, and then we were talking about Philadelphia and how once he was kind of being able to put himself into that story, it got better. But I thought this is really fascinating. And I consider myself like, people would be surprised that I would ever feel isolated and lonely. But, I end up canceling every event. I don't socialize because I think that the closer I am to my laptop, the better. Right. Even if I only sit down for 10 minutes a day, that's maybe all I can do because it's that painful. But I cancel everybody and I don't go out because that would be a distraction from writing.
No, absolutely. I love canceling plans. It's one of my favorite things to do. No, but absolutely. And that's another really good point that you hit on there, too. And I was actually just talking about this with, I think, Greg Van Eekhout the other day, is even if you only get that 10 minutes in the day to write, it's absolutely worth doing. And a lot of people don't think it is. A lot of people think they have to have this set schedule of productivity, and if they don't meet this, then they failed or something. But even if you only get those 10 minutes, as long as you use those 10 minutes to really do the work, it's totally worth it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And sometimes, I mean, the other stuff I wrote so fast, but there will be a point where, you kind of like, you just, all you do is avoid,
Right. Yeah. As a necessity, almost.
Yeah.
And you have to keep that in a healthy context. And I'm sure Mur would agree, there's a point where you can take that too far. But I think when you're working on a particular project, if you're keeping it in the right context and you're using it as a healthy outlet for all that personal stuff, it is a worthwhile thing to do. And it's okay to be isolated sometimes. It's okay to feel alone when you're doing this.
Yeah.
Stuff.
I totally agree with you. I mean, look, this is what we do. What I've noticed, though, is that it's a huge difference. Like, I have to, look around and say, oh, wow, well, this is certainly a different experience, No,
absolutely. And actually, I'd like to kind of dovetail off the last question Mur asked you, because you have directed a lot of television, and that was interesting. I kind of got to know you at an interesting point because it was a while after your last movie, and I don't think you'd really started to do a lot of TV yet, but you were really building up your social media platform, and you were really kind of getting big on Twitter and everything. And then you started to do Supergirl and Limitless and all these shows. You talked about you can't write something if you're not passionate about it, but you do have the ability to go on all these shows, you know, coming in as an outsider to someone else's story and direct episodes. And I was just wondering if you could talk about the difference between those two things, like why you can do one and not the other. And you can still do good work, because you do fantastic work as a television director.
Well, I'm fucking great at it too. I mean, on the TV front. And here's why, because I know actually how to direct really well, even somebody else's vision. And what I've done from day one when I started doing TV, it was made very clear to me because they have this fear of feature directors not being able to adapt to TV, right? And especially feature directors who wrote their own features. And so they will drill this into your head that it's not your vision, it's the showrunner's vision. And that makes total sense to me, okay? And also, you know, of course, you know, you are a woman director, you know that everybody is constantly underestimating you. I'm also a former athlete, so I wanted to be, you know, perfect at this. And so what I did is I tried to get myself into the showrunner's head to the point where I, you know, tape every tone meeting. The tone meeting is a meeting that you have where the showrunner basically step by step goes through each scene and tells you how they see it. And I taped them on my phone. Then I went home and edited the whole tape so that, because, you know, while the tone meeting goes page by page and scene by scene, the schedule is, of course, completely out of order. So I would go home and spend nights editing based on the schedule that I would have, so that I would have this tape every day that I put into my ear and hear the showrunner in my head. And this has worked out really well for me. There hasn't been a showrunner whoever was unhappy with what I've done. As a matter of fact, one of the showrunners I worked with on a show called American Gothic, her name is Corinne Brinkerhoff, and boy, that was such a great experience. And she, you know, probably she's one of the big reasons I stayed in this business, because she was just so complimentary and said, oh my God, once you came on, and I came on in episode 8 of 12, you know, she said, once you came on, I, for the first time, saw my show. And she says, I only regret not finding you for the pilot. And she still talks to everybody about me like this.
That's high praise, man.
Yeah, and by the way, it's super satisfying, because I get, I don't have an ego about that. It's not an idea that I've thought up. But I can also, I see it much more as like, if I do a movie and it's my movie that I've written, I have different heads of departments. Like I have a cinematographer, I have a production designer, I have a wardrobe person. And so they have to basically serve my vision, and they have to get into my head. And it's sometimes annoying because they ask a lot of questions, but I know what it's for. You know, they're trying to see what I see. And so in TV, I just take that place. The showrunner is like the filmmaker of, you know, and I'm a department head who's one department. I'm trying to serve their vision. It gets complicated for some people because directing in movies is so different than TV, but it was never for me. I just thought, okay, you know, I'm trying to basically paint what they see in their mind. And because I pay so much attention to it and I don't have an ego about it, is probably why I did fairly well in it. It's on the set I have more of an issue. The showrunners, unfortunately, don't often spend a lot of time on set. Oftentimes they're in another country, in another city, and you're getting sent somewhere to Canada.
I'm sorry, I have to ask the ignorant of Hollywood question. The showrunner, who runs the show, is not on set?
No.
Well, yeah. You go ahead, Lexi.
So the showrunner is, you know, in charge of all the scripts and all the writing. You know, they are more often in the writing room. Some of them will come out to be on set. But even, for example, on Taken, the showrunner was on location the entire time, but wasn't on set all the time, because he also had to write these scripts and run a writing room. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I think it's worth saying it's not it's not in any way a lazy thing for them not to. A showrunner is
I wasn't implying that. I was just confused.
No, I'm not for humor. I just want to make it clear to like anybody else who doesn't know. It's like show running, I would say, is one of the most, if not the most difficult jobs in the film and entertainment industry, because you are responsible for everything on that show. It's a literal title, so you're running so many different departments and so many different things that are scheduled against each other. You could have to be anywhere at any time. So that's really not unusual at all.
The thing that interests me about this is, to take it back to prose and my world, is I know so many authors who do hold on to their stories like they're pearls that can never ever be touched. Right. And I've written for, I've done work for hire before where the editor has almost tentatively said, I need to make some edits here. Are you okay with that? And I'm like, it's not my IP. Of course I'm okay with it. You hired me to do a job, and you fix it however you want. It's not my thing. And I'm actually really grateful that I started out in role-playing games, which is somebody else's world and somebody else's characters. And it helped me not get attached to various things. And it sounds like you have to have that mentality in Hollywood because there are so many people involved with what you're doing. Whether you're the writer or the director or the showrunner, you got to know that there are other people whose opinions matter.
What's the collaborative nature of the business? I mean, I would also put forth it's just the mentality of how writers are regarded in different industries. You know, I mean, in the theater, you would never go to the writer and say, "Can I change a line here?" Like that just would never happen because there's a reverence in live theater for that. But,
Shakespeare would have something to say about that.
Yeah, on set of a movie or TV or whatever, I mean, it's very common to just change the whole damn thing right there. Somebody wants to say it differently, or an actor has a problem with it, and they have enough stroke to go, I don't want to say it this way. It's just it's just completely different mentalities in different industries. And prose is like that. Books, there's a more of a reverence for of the author as the wellspring and kind of the end of the line creator in the process, whereas that just doesn't exist in film and TV because for one, at least in movies, writers are really viewed as the bottom of the trough, and two, it's just such a collaborative nature that there's no way to no one person is ever like the end all be all. I would
right. Well, it's interesting because I am great on TV, and even like on Punisher, for example, I was just taking the job.
Right.
Somebody else wrote the screenplay. Somebody else came up with the source material. So I tried to basically serve the demographic and try to listen to what the fans wanted to see, and nothing really was personal to me there. But on this that I'm writing, it would be more difficult for me to take any kind of notes because also, I'm writing about, Arabs or like a Western woman who is half Arab like I am. So there's a certain conversation going on, and it's going to be very hard for somebody who is not also Arab or hasn't lived there to tell me that this way would be better.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And so it's interesting, but do you guys ever write books? I mean, I imagine, Matt, if you would write something about your time as a wrestler, if an editor edits you and says, oh, we should take that out or we should not write that or blah, that would kind of be weird too, right?
No, I was actually just thinking as you were saying that. I mean, I'm not putting it forth as important as telling Arab story correctly, but yeah, I was a professional wrestler, and professional wrestling is always butchered when anybody makes a movie or a show about it.
That's why I tried to hire you on mine. I'm going to tell everybody.
I appreciate that.
I am still doing that. I'm still trying to do that.
Well, that's another story for another time. But That's why I'm so reticent to write. I have been so reticent to write about pro wrestling. The thing is, I have written specs about pro wrestling for a TV series format. And it is scary in that instance going out with it because it's like you said that and we've had these discussions, Lexi, about it because we talked about pro wrestling projects. Is it has its own culture and its own vernacular and its own language, and if you have no experience with that, it's literally impossible to bring a writer in to write about it and have them get it right.
I agree.
It's something you kind of have to keep close. not only because of your ego or because you're precious about the idea, but honestly, it's out of necessity. It's because it won't be done right if you don't do that. So you have to be more protective of it, just to tell the story correctly.
So I'm going to ask an asshole question here.
Please do. Be an asshole.
I know. I'm so often not the asshole on the show. I'm excited.
I enjoyed that episode. What was it called? How to find your inner asshole?
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yes. Toby was awesome. So the asshole question here is reality versus narrative flow. For example, if you actually followed crime scene investigators with a camera, you would be bored to fucking tears because of how slow everything is and how methodical and how they can't just turn on a song and skip hours and days of work to make it look like they got it done in half an hour. And so, and you know, the narrative thing of a space battle. There's no sound in space. I could think of Firefly did that. Firefly made it no sound in space, and I can't think of many other. I thought there was another one, but it's not coming to mind. But so yes, the reality and your experience is vital, but what happens when what the reality is doesn't work for a narrative flow?
Right. What do you think about that, Lexi?
Well, that doesn't actually happen quite a bit. I think that you have to find a good medium. Like there, you know, wrestling has its own thing, and I would, you know, I'd be interested to see. I don't come from wrestling, so I don't know all the terms. I'd be interested to see once somebody like Matt does a draft on a wrestling script that had all the terms wrong. What would I, as a non-wrestler, then feel like? Is it taking me out? Is it too technical for me to now relate because you're throwing like, insider lingo at me that I don't get?
Right.
I prefer to get everything right. Which I believe in wrestling, because certain techniques and throws and whatnot are easy recognizable. So if it can serve both, like, oh, the real dudes now know that we're legit, and the general audience is not confused because, I can't think of a throw now, but they all sound like it would be easy to guess that it's something like that. So I think there's a thin line, but I have been struggling with this on the script that I'm writing right now because, as you can imagine, the West has a completely warped idea of the Middle East. And and so I'm writing something and I'm like, nobody will understand this. Nobody will get this. This is way too insider, but this is how they would talk to each other. So what do I do now? So you have to find this really fine line, which is funny because on Queen Street, I had the same problem. You have to remember that America had no clue that there were hooligan firms attached to each British and German and Dutch club. Like, it was a complete new concept for most people. So how do I make a movie that I want to cross over to America and not lose the American audience? Well, that's where Elijah Wood came in. He was the American and he became the American audience eyes and ears. So when he was asking dumb questions, he was getting it explained. And so we were getting it explained. Now, in this case that I'm writing right now, I can do that sometimes, but there's no complete outsider, so I struggle. And one of the interesting facts that came up, maybe Matt, you've seen me do a poll about this, is I compared somebody in the script to Lionel Messi. I said, but this is the Lionel Messi of journalism, and this is hard for me to believe that somebody doesn't know what this means. And Scott said, nobody knows in America what this means.
Right.
And I said, this is not possible. It's not possible. This is the most famous athlete in the world. But then I come to find out that he was correct. I mean, it wasn't as bad as he made it sound, but it was a good 40% who had no idea who Lionel Messi is.
No, reference is definitely huge. We've been struggling with that for decades, I think, in science fiction and fantasy in every field. People have such a limited sense of history and a limited sense of anything outside of the U.S. that didn't happen 5 minutes ago. On top of that, that it's really hard to explain things to people through reference, and that definitely is a huge issue. But no, I think that was a great answer to the question. I think the only thing I can add to it is I like Lexi said, I think there's a way to contextualize all that inside stuff to make it relatable to the audience where you don't have to sacrifice it. But another thing that occurred to me in terms of like handling the reality versus dramatizing it as needed, like I'm working on a pilot right now about 80s wrestling. And what I love about that decade was
I'm directing that.
You would be my first choice, Lexi. The great thing about that period of wrestling was there are so many just bananas true stories that will make great TV that happened there, but they didn't all happen within the time period that I needed them to happen. So one thing you end up doing is kind of taking things that didn't necessarily happen at a time, but did happen, and putting them there because they work there in context. And I don't feel that violates the integrity of the story I'm telling, even though it is a true story, because these are all true things that did happen. They just didn't happen at the exact times. Or as close to each other as they needed to be. So I think that's one example of how you balance those two elements, but I think there's always a way to do it.
But I think what I think is really interesting, what Mirth did in terms of CSI and stuff like that, right? I have read articles about the fact that, actually, this was interesting. A French judge said this, and it made me laugh so loud because somebody behaved in a certain way during a trial. And she got so upset, she screamed, "This is not Law and Order. You have to stop watching these shows." And so I laughed because, of course, like people have this warped idea of how, for example, you watch Law and Order and you think that any murder trial happens the next day after the person gets arrested. Nobody talks about the fact that there's 2 years they sit in some kind of jail, neither here nor there,
Absolutely.
So you are right about that. And I think that in terms of TV, we may even have, well, I certainly do think, there's a whole other issue I have problems with in terms of how do we represent, for example, certain people like Arabs or Muslims. Like we do have a responsibility also in terms of how do we represent a profession,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at this point, especially in American culture, it's way more important to get the story of the Middle East right. I think it's way more important than worrying over every little bit of context to actually capture that accurately, because there's so much negativity about it. I also would argue you have to prioritize like that a little bit. Some things you just can't fuck with. Some things are just not worth dumbing it down or dramatizing it to sacrifice the source material if you're trying to tell the story right.
I read a really depressing article yesterday. I think I tweeted it too. It was about how Hollywood and the Pentagon have this like tight relationship, and how suddenly I thought we were doing anti-Trump and anti-Republican things now. I had this feeling that all of a sudden people are open for a pilot set in Syria, and Iraq, and I come to find out reading this article that actually the opposite of projects are being greenlit left and right. Like one project is called For God and Country or something crazy like that, from the makers of Homeland.
Of course.
Yeah, it was a little bit odd.
No, I mean, the thing is, it sounds like it's really not. That's been a constant thing throughout. I mean, I remember after 9/11, everybody from Washington came down to Hollywood to tell all the filmmakers and television producers, you have to make more patriotic shows. It has to be pro-America.
Right.
That literally happened. Fucking Karl Rove came to Hollywood.
I do know they have a relationship, and they just came here and talked to 22 executives. That was Kerry still during Obama. He came here to talk to 22 film executives on how our movies can combat ISIS. Meantime, not a single brown person or Muslim in the room. That cracked me up. Like that, it was hilarious. But I do know they have a relationship. I did not think that people were greenlighting. I just didn't think. I don't know. I know that Hollywood is not as liberal as it pretends to be, but I did not think that we were actually going out and greenlighting this stuff, because there's also so much backlash on Twitter and social media right now about this,
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think there's only so much penetration you're still getting off that. It's like you said, the ACLU and everybody came out here to investigate fair hiring practices, and what's actually changed since that? It's just the machine is so resistant to that kind of change. It really is. But it's easy to get disheartened and to not be able to believe how deep it actually goes, though, because it doesn't really make any sense. You would think right now would be the time to greenlight the show set in C. You think this would be the perfect time for it, but. Yeah, I think
what would be interesting is, and I wasn't around in America at that time. I don't think I was in general around, but there was a time where Hollywood did all these anti-Vietnam films.
Right.
When did that happen?
That was the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was like post 70s, literally not that long after the war ended, honestly, as I recall.
So it basically took 10 years for them to come around and make these movies, but then they came one after another, and they were all famous, and they all won awards.
Oh yeah, that was in the 80s. That was a huge thing. I remember. Yeah, Platoon, Born on 4th of July.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Oliver Stone, basically everything he made in the 80s. Yeah. I don't know how that tracks or why, but yeah, the false liberalism thing is absolutely true out here. It's often used as a shade when the practices are completely against everything that's actually being said, and it's really frustrating.
Right.
Well, there's so much more stuff I want to talk to you about.
We could talk to it.
I know
all
we didn't even talk about adapting books. I was going to tell you about all these times I tried.
Listen, we are going to have you back on the show, and we're going to talk about all those things. But we're over an hour now. We do have some questions to get to, so I'd love to do that.
Oh yeah.
If you would agree,
No,
we'd love to have you back on the show.
Definitely.
And you definitely can edit out anything you want to. I am not picky about this on podcasts.
No, I wouldn't edit a word. I think it's been fantastic. But
do you do podcasts over an hour? No.
Oh
yeah, no. We go over all the time. We try to keep it within that range, which is why I'm doing the cutoff now.
It's usually around an hour where we're like, oh shit, we've gone an hour. We should probably start wrapping up.
Let's do it. Ask questions.
Yeah, I assure you, you're worth 14 extra minutes.
Definitely.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions from pros, which, Lexi, that shows you what a big deal you are, because we have professionals coming out to ask you. The first one comes from Madeline Ashby, who we've actually had on the show before. She's a futurist, novelist. She asks, would Lexi ever do fight consulting for books? I watched a lot of self-defense and Olympic Taekwondo videos for my novel Company Town, but I still made mistakes.
She should ask my friend Alex Bledo about it, who I've consulted on several books. I will actually tweet a little thing about it if you want. But yeah, I have done it. I don't charge for it, so I can't do it for everybody.
Of course.
But as long as there are not 20 requests a week in my mailbox, I definitely do it.
Well, I think a good point to make there is, even if you can't get Lexi, I know we would all love to have Lexi work on all of our projects, but there are a lot of people out there that can consult on fight scenes for your books, and you just have to find them and vet their work, So, Lexi, if you could.
Well, it's interesting. I'm not sure, actually. I would say you probably one of the only other people. Here's the thing that I think. Okay, yes, you can go to a dojo and ask somebody, but they don't really know how writing works. And
no, that's true. Yeah.
So in terms of where does the writing meet the martial arts? I'm not sure there are that many, to be honest.
It's true. I'm not saying there are fighters who understand writers as well, but I think it's really the writer's job to interpret whatever they're told by whoever they're consulting. Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely a rare thing.
But they can always ask you.
They can always ask me. I'm always available. I'm not as busy as Lexi, so feel free to hit.
Oh, probably much busier.
I'll be Lexi's substitute on that one.
No, he's much better than me.
Especially for Madeline. I'd be happy to consult for Madeline. She's fantastic. So,
do you ever tell your audience that you taught knife defense classes and all of that?
I don't really talk about. I mean, I when people ask, I'm happy to tell them. But yeah,
this is the video content you should be doing. That's supposedly good for writers.
That actually is not a bad point. My cousins are all begging me to give them self-defense lessons because some kid had his arm cut off at a school that my cousin works at. So I may start doing classes again. Maybe I'll shoot.
Do a little bit video content. I think that's great. And by the way, I think that anyway, we're getting too much. But at one point, we should talk about the fact that you are completely handsome. That there's a whole horde of women who have a thing about big guys with beards. Okay, I actually know about this. It's a real thing, and you should not be thinking that you should not be in front of a video camera. I object to that.
I appreciate that. My fiance absolutely agrees with you, and you're both smarter than me, so I should listen. Thank you for that. So we also have Adam Rakunas, who we're actually having on the show Thursday. Adam is a very talented novelist, and he asks, Lexi, how do you write fights and action sequences in your screenplays? Do you write them blow by blow, or do you just write the story beats? And that's actually a pretty good question, and one I get fairly often.
Oh, you know what? I do love that question because I have changed a little bit on that, and now I found that I have found like the perfect cadence of how to write it. At first I wanted to impress people with all the stuff that I know,
right.
With all the, I threw it all in there, and I'm like, I bet you haven't seen this. And I've noticed that, people really don't give a rat's ass about, spinning, jumping, roundhouse kicks and stuff.
Right.
And now it's very hard to explain, but somebody said after reading it that my fight scenes now read like spoken word.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so it's almost, it has a rhythm to it. I like put in like smash, boom, broken jaw, something like that. Like, and I write it like
that's awesome. That's so awesome.
And now it's really unbelievable because now that I write in sounds. I write in cracking bone, like the other day I wrote is smash, sickening sound, nasal septum cracked, like, and they really read like rap, like spoken word. And as I do that, like if I give them a sound, and then what is the effect that this hit had and where did it hit, just that has the most effect on the reader. I don't think they care what kind of punch it was. Was it a hook? Was it a straight, punch? An uppercut? They don't care. What they care about is like, how did it go? What was the effect? And, how did it sound?
No, I completely agree. And I struggled with that too, because when you do, especially coming from a professional wrestling background, which is basically all fight choreography anyway, when I think of a fight scene, I see every move of the fight scene. Like, you choreograph it in your head, whether you want to or not. And your impulse is to write down all that choreography. But the truth is, first of all, I just think that's useless in a screenplay to begin with, because all that's going to change depending on the actor you get, the choreographer you get, the time you have to do it. There's just no way to lay that out in the screenplay format. And secondly, I think you're right. Like, I don't think anybody cares at that point. It's really about conveying the feeling and the effect it has on what's going on.
And what did it for me, what changed and what made my writing better is the moment I stopped thinking about being a fighter, but thinking about when I fought, what was the audience thinking? There were some fights I had where the audience had really big reactions. Like, people would be, oh, whoop, there it is. Like, I remember that on tournaments. There was like, whoop, there it is. And like, I'm like, okay, like, I'm not actually, I want to impress the reader. So I have to stop thinking I'm a fighter. I have to think about what were those people feeling around the ring. And then I went to these moments, like, what did they react to? Like, a foot sweep was always something, but they didn't react to the foot sweep. They reacted to the other person suddenly being in midair and bam, flying down. Right. And so all it took for me to make my writing better was take myself out of being a fighter and put myself in the audience, in an actual fight, but in the audience's shoes.
No, I could not possibly add anything. I think that's perfectly said and absolutely dead on.
You probably figured this out years ago. It took me
really? No. It's been a recent thing. And honestly, like, when I write prose, I still do my own choreography because I'm just like, fuck it, this is my book and I'll do it if I want to. But screenplays is just totally different. But that's what you're talking about is exactly in.
Well, I have to say that I had some connection difficulties thanks to Time Warner, so the ending of that might be a little garbled, but would like to thank Lexi very much for being on the show and having lots of patience regarding our connectivity. Lexi, will you come back? Because we have so much more to talk about.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I just elected myself as your third co-host.
Yay!
I will be there every week.
I am fine with that.
Excellent.
No, I'm just kidding. I will definitely come back. This was so much fun, and I love you both very much.
Oh,
Yay,
thank
you.
We love you too.
Where can people find you and your work online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Lexi Alex, and you can buy my book. I don't really have one, but you can buy Matt and Mer's books.
Thank you very much.
You can buy your movies, right?
You said this is when we plug our books, and I said, oh, I should plug a book, but since I don't have one, I'm plugging your books, and I have read Matt, so Mer, I have to get one of yours. But yeah, that's Twitter is pretty much like all where you can find me. That's it.
Excellent.
Cool.
Mer, you do have a book.
Dude, I got a list. I'm not gonna forget the book ever again. I told you I was gonna write a list. I wrote a list. So next on the list, shut up. Next on the list is email address. So if you would like to send a question to the show, email mightymer@gmail.com. If you want to see our wonderfully written show notes through Matt's blood, sweat, and tears, you can go to ditchdiggers.merverse.com. And next on the list is promote books. So I have a book called 6 Wakes. Unfortunately, if you missed the World Book Day, it was an Amazon Kindle deal, which was exciting. I think I got up to 216 on the Kindle store. That was pretty sweet. But I think it's probably back down. But it's still, people say nice things about it, and it's
worth paying full price for. I will say that flat out. Pay the full cover price. Yeah.
But it's called 6 Wakes. It's a murder mystery in space. So
hold on a second. Can you repeat that, please?
It is a murder mystery in space.
No, what you said before the title.
The 6 Wakes.
Lexi's literally writing it down. That's so awesome.
Yay.
Yeah, I need to buy everything now. Of course, I'm supporting my people.
And I forgot to write down the Twitter thing. I gotta make a little note here. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Mighty Mer and Matt at Matt FN Wallace. Matt, promote your books.
Yes, I write a funny, foodie, action-packed, twisted series of books called Sin du Jour. The latest one is Idle Ingredients. It's the 4th book in the series. The next book is called Greedy Pigs, and that is coming out May 16th. May 20th, I will be at Dark Delicacies in Burbank signing Greedy Pigs, along with a gentleman called Cory Doctorow and a young lady called Amber Benson. So if you're in the area...
Cory is my friend. I love Cory.
Cory is awesome. I have not met him. Mer is also very good friends with him. I'm looking forward to meeting him. So.
He's one of my favorite people in the world. We're both the only people who support file sharing,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not opposed to pirating.
he will tell you why too. So we
we were both on a panel together at the European Commission last year talking.
I did not know that. That is very cool.
The dark side of
Lexi back to be on a show with Cory.
We absolutely need to do that now.
But he's so smart. Listen, you should not have another guest, because when he starts, I don't think he doesn't say this to people, okay, but he has such a high IQ, and he manages to speak in a manner that is so fascinating about this intelligent shit that I've sat on panels with him and literally could not speak, because I was like, why don't we let him speak the entire day,
No, he makes it really relatable. Yeah.
It's funny.
He really is.
I do a local book radio show, and since Cory's coming to town on his book tour, we had him on the phone yesterday. And of course, everything he said was amazing about his new book, but I mentioned something about the Streisand effect and asked him a question about it, and he's like, oh yeah, well, for your listeners' information, the Streisand effect was coined by this person on this site about this specific thing. And I knew what the Streisand effect was, but I didn't remember specifically what it was about, like what pissed Streisand off so much. And he knew the guy, he knew the website, and it was frightening.
I don't know how his mind works. I mean, his brain, I'm in awe of the man. And you know what? He's also a really good guy. So is his wife, so is his daughter. They're like genuinely good people. But it's like, he has the kind of intelligence that I think of him as like, boy, if he'd be on the bad side, we'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God he's on our side.
And literally, because he is that super smart and also like able to like draw masses, which I guess he doesn't like doing really. But he could invent a religion and like tell people to jump off a cliff, I think.
Oh no, Scientology, as told by Cory Doctorow, would be both powerful and free.
Yeah, right. I want to say one thing. You can cut this out, but I have to say this. Okay, I meant to talk about something and I didn't get to talk about it, but I really want to talk about it at some point, or I'm writing a blog post about it. I have this thing, Matt, about your Twitter feed, okay, which I actually, a lot of white dudes have problems with Twitter and how to tweet. Like, they don't understand the how to shift between like supporting themselves, but also like shining the light on others.
Yeah,
right.
And you are the example I give to everybody of having a perfect white male Twitter. I'm not just saying that to compliment you. Like, there's probably a lot of other guys that would be upset of this, but you are the perfect example of having perfect Twitter game as a white male on Twitter. And it's not just simple of what you do. There's a certain rhythm of what you do, of how much you support others. But at the same time, you also manage to talk about your own thing. Whereas I see a lot of guys who, seemingly are on the right side, but they feel like they have to do one or the other.
No, yeah, I totally get what you're talking about.
I really would like to talk about it because I was going to ask you if I tried to figure out if I can see some of your most like some of the popular tweets that you've had, because I remember finding you based on one tweet that you had that went almost viral.
Right.
And I think that's something that nobody teaches.
That's true. I mean, literally nobody does.
No, and I think it's sometimes it's people don't know. For them, they think it's either, well, I either like never talk because I'm supposed to give the stage to others and highlight others, or I always talk. And it's not like that, but it seems very hard for some, guys to get the right rhythm of like, what, you can actually do all of it. You don't have to neglect your own space and voice to support others, No,
and I think your own space and your own voice is what makes it. You have a platform that's worth promoting others.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I don't have a massive platform. I've been building it up slowly over the last few years in particular, but I am grateful to be in a place where there are people who don't have as big a following as me that I think I am able to,
Well, I wish you would have a bigger following because you are the perfect like example for this. It's not really about you. That. I'm like really wanting other people to like learn from you. I know that you have some famous author friends who shall remain anonymous. I'm not mentioning them, but they say that they're on the side of those issues, but they don't tweet like that at all.
No, I know what you're talking about. I think it's really a problem of, I think status is one thing. I mean, maintaining this when I get, if I ever get up to an insane amount of followers and get an insane amount of status, I hope I will be able to remain the person that I am now. But I think that inevitably does change some people, and it puts them a little more on guard than they should be, and they become a little more closed off to criticism than they should be. And eventually, I think that makes them recoil just from touching any of these things at all. I think it becomes kind of a self-defense mechanism, which I don't really have yet. And because the truth is, because I'm a huge white guy, like, I can say a lot of shit that I get away with that like women would get, dogpiled for. It's just the truth. So I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot of.
But
fear.
Like, if the guy's more famous than you, if they don't do it, then what's the point? Like, the idea is like, as they become more famous, the more they can help. So if they don't feel that, then are they really sincere about wanting to solve those social issues?
It's an absolutely fair question to ask, and I think it boils down to even if they're well intentioned, it's like you said, it's the actions that really matter. I always say, let's see how I do when I'm doing the hiring, because that's when you really find out what somebody's about and if they're really trying to help out or if they're just trying to elevate themselves.
Good point. But anyway, I didn't mean to go another 20 minutes.
No.
We're
doing a horrible job of ending the show. Just horrible. But yeah, I don't know if we'll leave that in or whatever. We can talk. Maybe we can use it next time or something. But that is definitely something worth talking about. Just beyond giving me the massive props I deserve. That is a very
we could just do a social media 101.
We should totally do that because I'm
should,
sure you know people too who like do it right and do it wrong.
Yeah.
And there are some people who don't do it wrong, but I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with some people not using, their spotlight and their fame and their platform. Or dude, like, you complaining about Trump and where we're at, and that people are like, there's swastikas everywhere, but you're not using your platform to clean anything of this up, or to help people out, or to say some things so that I don't have to say them as an Arab woman,
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it's frustrating,
No, let's absolutely do that. And I wanted to ask you about social media anyway, because that was another topic we didn't get to. So I'd be happy to talk about that more in the next one.
I already got it written down.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, but I interrupted you before you finished your list of things you wanted to plug, right?
No.
Oh, that's fine.
Lovely things about it.
That's what editing's for.
I don't even remember where I plugged my books, right? So I plugged Cindy Jour. That's where we left off with the outro part.
You were plugging your appearance with Corey.
Oh yeah,
that's where we got sidetracked.
I love Corey.
Okay, so I'll go back into the plug part now. Is that cool?
Sorry.
Sure.
Yes.
No, you're fine. So yeah, if you're in Burbank, you happen to be lucky enough to be in Burbank on May 20th, please come out and see that. I'd also like to give a quick plug to Rencor, Life in Grudge City, my Lucha buddy cop novella that I've done with From Parts Unknown Publishing. Please pick that up off Amazon if you can. And the final thing I'd like to mention is Myrrh. We're Hugo finalists.
Yeah, we didn't even mention it last week.
We didn't even mention it last week. We're finalists for the Hugo Award for Best Fancast. No, this is the first time.
Oh.
Yeah, for our first nomination.
So we're on the short list, and voting, I believe voting has begun.
It has.
I wanted to tell everybody, once again, thank you so much to everybody who supported us, getting us on the ballot. Now we would actually like to win the award. I'll say it. Yeah. I don't have a problem. Cameron Hurley made fun of me for it, so why not? I'll just come out and say it again. I want a Hugo. I want a rocket. I want to put it on my shelf. So
Cameron's got one for each hand. Of course she can look down on you for saying you want one now. She's already got two.
She's giving me shit. So yeah, Murr and I would both like to win a Hugo Award. So if you supported us this far and you were voting for the Hugos this year, please consider us for Best Fancast. Thank you.
Yes, and one more promotion.
I'm looking at a picture of the two of you right now on your website. I fucking love it.
That was a fun day. And the last thing to promote is Patreon. If you support us on Patreon, even at the $1 level, you will get early episodes of Ditch Diggers, early episodes of I Should Be Writing far before anybody else does. People were commenting on the Toby Backel episode like days before it went up because they were Patreon supporters.
They got it early. You get the exclusive shit.
Yeah, they get it early, and so you can do that at patreon.com/mightymur. It says me, but I do share it with Matt, so don't think that he's not getting a cut, because he is.
No, we both get banned. We appreciate everybody who supports us on Patreon. Definitely. And again, $1 makes a huge difference. If you could just pledge $1, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yep. And I was going to say the last thing on the list is info on the next show, because we're actually organized now, but right. I can't decide whether we need to do a feedback show or our next interview, so I'm a little confused.
Let's just leave it open.
We're going to leave it open.
Yeah,
but future guest hosts of the show include Adam Rakunas and Andrea Phillips together, and that's all we have scheduled so far, but we will be scheduling more, because having the awesome Lexi Alexander on our show has given us confidence to go out and pick up more huge names. So, Lexi, you have opened the door for us.
Yeah. Yay! There are much bigger names than me, and I'm happy to help point them out, but I guess you know them much better than me in the writing world.
I don't know about that, but we do what we can.
I think having your name involved with anything cannot be a bad thing, because I'm
proud of it.
I'm going to drop your name to Cory Doctorow, even though I already know him, and see what happens, because it's going to be really. I can imagine it'll be really cool.
I adore him. Although he is one of those people I totally stood up at a event they invited me to because I was in the depressed writer mode. But
I think
they'll
Corey
probably
would forgive you.
Yeah, he would probably totally get that. Yeah,
he would get it and forgive you, absolutely.
Definitely. Well,
right.
Thank you for being on the show, Lexi. It was a lot of fun, and I'll see you next time, Matt.
See you next time, Mer. Thank you, Lexi.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Take care.
You can support us at patreon.com/mightymur.
Ditch Diggers!
Theme song by Devo Spice, devospice.com.